Hi. There's an old saying that you're probably familiar with, which is that if a man has a hammer, then everything looks like a nail. So, in other words, people tend to start with the tool that they've got, and then they work out what they're going to do to try and change the world based on the tool they've got in their hand. There's a lot of talk at the moment about the 2021 Holyrood election and what can be done to prevent, first of all, another 5 years of SNP misgovernment, and secondly, the possible breakup of the United Kingdom. Now, a number of suggestions have been put forward as to how the problem of May 2021 and the Holyrood election could be addressed. And it's important, I think, to spend 2 minutes, or in this case, 10, 15 minutes, thinking about what could be done, whether it will work, and what the alternatives are. Alternatives that I think have been dismissed for bad reasons or no reasons at all. So most folk don't really understand electoral systems, and I've been teaching politics for 25 years, and I've had the experience every single year, multiple times, of spending 2.5 hours boring a class rigid, and at the end of it, the students always say, with regard to a particular electoral system, well, why don't we do that then? Why don't we do that? And it's the most heartbreaking thing imaginable, because this has been going on now for getting on for 150 years. If you read John Stuart Mill's Considerations in Representative Government, Mill was having exactly the same problems in the middle of the 19th century. Electoral systems are boring. Folk can't be bothered thinking it through. They would much rather work really hard or get really angry than spend 2 seconds thinking about the cause of their ills. So it's a bit like, for example, if you're trying to think of an example, it's a bit like going hill walking on a terrible day and being desperate to get back to the car because things are looking really bleak. And folk instinctively will work really hard. Your natural instinct is to say, we have to get on with this, we can't be mucking about. And the trouble is, you have to work out where you are. You have to work out whether you're going to march over a cornice and fall to your death. You have to work out whether you're walking in the wrong direction. And people find that extremely difficult. There's something deep in human nature which says that more effort is required if something is going wrong. So people tend to get stuck into a behavioural rut. So I think it'd be useful to just remind folk or explain to folk how the Holyrood electoral system that you're going to face in May works. The system was designed to prevent one-party dominance, and it was designed to be a sop to the Conservatives and also to the Scottish National Party. People forget this. When the Scottish Parliament was set up in 1999, and when the offer was made to the other parties and to the Scottish people in the devolution referendum before it, there was an attempt made to win the consent of all parties. And for the Tory party, that involved throwing them a lifeline. It involved giving them an electoral system that would mean they would win some seats. And that's what the additional member system, or the additional members system, that's what it was designed to do. It means that parties that can't win first past the post elections, parties that can't win seats in a Westminster-style election, still get representation. And from their point of view, they get something even better than representation. They get the right to decide who the representatives will be. So not only do the parties like the Tory party and the Greens, and in 1999 the SNP, not only do those parties get MSPs, but they get to decide who the MSPs will be. So the people who actually work for the party, the people who are the insiders, depending on the party's processes, they get to decide who'll get a seat in the Scottish Parliament. So this was very attractive to those parties other than Labour. Labour knew they were going to sweep the elections in 1999, which of course they did, and they formed a coalition government with the Liberal Democrats. The expectation was that Labour would dominate the Scottish Parliament forever, because it seemed so in 1999. Scotland had always been Labour and always would be. So the additional members system, which was brought in, was designed by London Labour to prevent the dominance of Scottish Labour. Pause and contemplate that for a moment. The Labour Party in London, Tony Blair's Labour Party, had so little confidence in the group of frankly Glasgow councillors that constituted the Labour Party in Scotland, that they were terrified that they would win control of the Scottish Parliament and then run it into the ground and run Scotland into the ground and thereby discredit the London Labour Party. That's what Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson and the rest of them actually thought about the Scottish Labour Party, and I'm not saying they were wrong. So the idea was the Liberal Democrats would be the control rods in a Labour-Liberal Democrat coalition, and so it proved up until 2007, when the SNP narrowly were the largest party. So how does the additional member system work? Well, imagine a cake. Imagine a big cake the shape of Scotland. If it pleases you, you can make it a Dundee cake. And imagine a cookie cutter that's going to cut Scotland into 8 pieces. So you take a big cake of Scotland and you stamp it with a piece of steel to cut Scotland into 8 big pieces. You then take a second piece of steel, which has got 73 pieces in it, and you stamp it again. Now what you've now got is big cuts around Scotland in 8 big bits, and then you've got other wee cuts around Scotland. So Scotland is made up of some big cuts and some smaller cuts, pieces within pieces. Wherever you are standing, therefore, in Scotland, you are standing in a place which has been cut into a big region, one of the 8, and you're also standing in a smaller place. So if you're standing in Langside, in Glasgow, you're also standing in a big region called Glasgow, as well as standing in the little constituency, presumably Glasgow South, I haven't checked. So wherever you're standing in Scotland, you're always standing in a first-past-the-post little constituency, and you're also standing in a great big region. When you vote, you get 2 bits of paper. You get 1 vote for your local MSP. And in Scotland recently, of course, the SNP have been winning those votes. In order to be elected as your local MSP, you have to get more votes than any other single candidate. Okay? You don't have to get half. You don't have to get any particular number. You don't have to get any particular percentage. You only have to get more votes than any other single candidate. And in Scotland, because the vote tends to fragment between lots of different candidates, what you get are people elected on very small shares of the total vote and even smaller shares of the total electorate. So folk win the first-past-the-post constituency seats. The SNP win the first-past-the-post constituency seats on a remarkably low number of votes. How then are the regional seats doled out? So there are 73 constituencies, and the people who win those constituencies are the people who get most votes. That tends to be the SNP these days. How do you dole out the regional seats? Because there are 7 extra seats doled out. Now in 1999 these would be doled out to the Tories and to the SNP mainly. How do they get doled out? Well, the way it works is you will get seats in the Scottish Parliament in proportion to your share of the regional vote. Okay, that's how the system's supposed to work. If you get 50% of the regional vote, you should get 50% of all of the seats in that region, first-past-the-post and regional. So if there are 9 first-past-the-post seats in the region and there are 7 extra, there's 16. So if you get 50% of the regional vote, you should get 50% of the seats, which in this case would be 8. If you've already won 8 seats first-past-the-post, you're not going to get any extra regional. Because what they do is, they take the number of first-past-the-post seats that you've won in that region. So if you're the SNP, you tend to win a lot of first-past-the-post seats. So they take your, 7 or 8 first-past-the-post seats, and for mathematical reasons, they put a 1 onto it. So they add 1 on, and they divide that into your total number of regional votes. They adjust down your regional vote total to allow for the fact that you've already won first-past-the-post seats. Okay? So what that means is a party that can win lots of regional votes but can't win first-past-the-post seats, they tend to get the extra top-up seats from the 7. Okay? So that's how the system works. So if you can win first-past-the-post seats, your regional vote total is reduced to show the fact that you've already won first-past-the-post seats. So parties that win first-past-the-post typically don't get regional top-up seats. So the Tories who can't win, the Greens who can't win, Labour who can't win first-past-the-post, the SNP are the biggest party in almost every single constituency. If you add up all the votes for the other parties together in the constituencies, often there's more votes, always nearly there's more votes than there is for the SNP. But the SNP win first-past-the-post. They have more votes than any other single candidate in the constituency. So it's the other parties, Labour increasingly, the Tories, the Greens, who get the list seats, the top-up seats from the region. Okay? That's why a party has to submit a list of regional names. You submit a list of regional names because if you're the SNP, you've got your first-past-the-post candidates in the seats, the first-past-the-post constituency seats, and you've put forward a slate of names for the regional list. And if you're underrepresented first-past-the-post, if you can't win first-past-the-post seats, but nevertheless you've done quite well in the regional vote, you'll get extra regional seats. Now, of course, what's now been proposed for 2021 is that a former SNP MSP, Thompson, he's going to set up what is effectively SNP 2.0 or SNP-ish. He's going to create a kiddie-on party. In my view, in my opinion, a kiddie-on party. He has already said that his MSPs, if elected, will support Nicola Sturgeon, will support the SNP. So the idea is, between now and the Holyrood election next May, the SNP supporters are going to get a hold of the idea, either because Thompson and others have told them, or because they've worked it out, or because maybe people in the SNP using social media will work it out. But what's going to happen between now and May is people are going to be told to vote SNP, first past the post, and then for this new party, Alliance for Independence, I think he calls it, they're going to vote for this in the regional list. Now what this means is, this new party will not have won any first-past-the-post seats. The SNP will have won first-past-the-post seats, but of course this new party technically isn't the SNP. So all these folk are going to vote SNP in the first-past-the-post election, and then they're going to vote for this new nationalist separatist party in the regional list. And what that's going to mean, of course, is there's going to be maybe out of 73, who knows, 59, 60, 63, more. There's going to be a lot of SNP winners in the first-past-the-post constituencies. And then, because this new independent separatist party on the regional list hasn't got any first-past-the-post, they will get, if they can get 40% of the regional vote, they deserve 40% of all the seats, first-past-the-post and regional, in that region. So they'll get a load of extra seats. So you will end up with a Scottish Parliament which has got a massive separatist majority. So that's how they're planning to game the system. That's what they're planning to do. Now, this has worked before. People forget this. In 2003, I remember watching people standing in Buchanan Street explaining to Labour voters. They were stopping, the SSP were there and so were the Greens. They were stopping people and asking them, are you a Labour voter? If you are a Labour voter, let me explain to you why there is no point in you voting Labour in the regional list, because you're not going to get any extra representation. So if you're a Labour voter and you can't be bothered with Tony Blair and you're to the left of the modern Labour Party, but you feel you have to vote Labour first past the post, that's okay, we understand that. Why not use your second regional vote and vote for the SSP? Because you're not going to get any extra Labour MSPs. So vote for us and we'll get in the regional list. And it worked like magic. Labour voters split their vote. They voted Labour first past the post. They voted SSP on the regional list. And consequently, you got 6 SSP, 7 Greens, a Scottish Senior Citizens Unity Party candidate, and I can't remember if that was the year Margaret MacDonald got elected or whether it was later, but there was a whole load of minor party candidates elected in 2003 because Labour voters had worked out how to use the system. You see, if we don't switch on, you see if people don't understand, you see if Tories actually are stupid enough to think, if Unionists are stupid enough to think that separatists can't work this out in the next 9 months, then hell will mend them. Any Tory right now, any Unionist right now of any political stripe who is currently sitting complacent, fat, happy, thinking that it's all going to be okay because, oh, well, you know, the tribal loyalties of the SNP will kick in. People won't be able to vote for a separatist candidate on the regional list who isn't SNP. Well, it didn't work in 2003, did it? In 2007, they had to rig the election and allow Alex Salmond for First Minister to be on the ballot, precisely to try and stop the growth of these minor parties, which had happened in 2003. And it resulted in such a scandal that Douglas Alexander, of course, was criticised in the investigation that followed it. So if there's any Tory out there in particular, any Unionist generally, who has been sitting fat and happy thinking that all this is going to work out because somehow the tribal loyalties of people like Mary Black, who doesn't have a dog in the fight in 2021, if people think that the casual remarks about people like Black, oh, you should always support the SNP, if you think that's going to save you and save the Tory party in 2021 in Holyrood, you'd better wake up. Because in 2003, the Labour Party found out that those tribal loyalties weren't enough. And I have no reason to suppose that the SNP's tribal loyalties will prevent folk voting tactically on that regional list, and it will wipe out the non-SNP parties. So we are staring down the barrel of a gun. Now, some people have suggested that there's a solution. Maybe Gorgeous George is going to arrive in a white Charger, and these new Alliance for Unity or whatever candidates are going to stand on the regional list. And sometimes people attach that idea to the other parties should only field one candidate in the first past the post constituencies. So in this fantasy world, where all of a sudden we have an easy solution, which is we put forward a regional list of George Galloway and a few other radicals who will somehow hold to account the SNP and teach Nicola Sturgeon a lesson. Listen, the SNP have been talking about holding folk to account in Westminster for decades. There is no such thing as holding somebody to account in a parliamentary system. You can rant, you can rave, you can win as many debates as you like, but the bottom line is majorities tell. A party with a majority doesn't care about your holding to account. They can always do what they like. So if you vote on the basis that George Galloway is somehow going to be able to stand up and tub thump and criticise the SNP and that's all going to make a difference, pause and contemplate one thing. Even if you were right, it's not going to make a difference until